And then as I worked in different companies, I started to realize that I really like the startup scene, and I started to learn a lot more about it. And I thought, if only one day I could do something in the startup scene in the area of sustainability. But I think at that point, I didn't really know enough about my career or myself to know if I can.
Hey guys, welcome to Meet the Owner. Today I'm interviewing Alina Bassi. She is the London-born CEO and founder of Kleiderly, which is based in Germany. The company has invented processes for turning old clothes into new products, which makes a huge environmental impact. She's listed on the Forbes 30 under 30 list Europe for 2020. In this interview, we talk about confidence, starting a business, successes, challenges, funding, and all sorts. I hope you enjoy this interview. Welcome, Alina.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. Okay, so if we just start, Alina, if you just talk to us a bit about your background. What was your upbringing like? So what was it like being a kid? What were your parents like?
So apparently I was very happy-go-lucky, really, kind of loads of fun, loved to just socialize and play with my friends. And I used to apparently invite the whole class home and just tell my mum at the end of the day, all these people are coming to our house. And I feel sorry for her, actually. And I used to really like music, so I used to play the guitar and piano when I started at the age of 5. And I loved music and I loved dancing. So I did a lot of kind of artsy stuff and performing and playing music on stage and in school a lot.
Okay, so do you still do that? Do you still
No.
play instruments and that kind of thing?
So my mum's definitely gonna laugh when I say this, because she's been trying to get me to play, and so is my dad for a really long time again. But it's one of those things, I think you get out of practice, and then when you try and play again, you're so awful at it that you get really annoyed that you were so good and now you're so bad. So I need to maybe kind of get back into it, but it's going to take a bit of time. But yeah, I was just really kind of easygoing child, definitely at the younger years. And my parents had moved from Tanzania to the UK and settled just outside West London. So that's where I grew up.
Oh, right. Okay. No, sounds good. So what about school days? How was high school and all of that? How did you find it? Did you love school? Did you hate school?
I really struggled in secondary school. I went from a really small, nice little primary school. And so I had a lot of confidence, and I was really, I had a big character and personality. And I went into secondary school and just completely flipped 180 and became really quiet and intimidated. And I went to a school that was 10 times bigger, from 100 kids to 1,000 kids, and I couldn't deal with it. And you go through all those awkward teenage years where you feel like you don't want to be seen and you don't want anyone to notice you. And I really struggled with secondary school. Yeah.
Did that carry on into university then, do you think, or did it get better?
No, I think eventually I kind of got back to being myself again. But it took a while. I think I didn't really have much confidence until maybe sort of A level, maybe even end of A levels, more university time. It took a long time, and I think it does. I think you kind of you grow up, you become confident, and you basically become how you were as a kid. It's very strange. I think that's what happened to me. And I don't really, I think going back now, I probably would, I hate thinking back to my childhood and thinking I used to never tell anyone I played music, and never told anyone I used to love to dance and be on stage, because in secondary school, I just didn't want to be seen at all.
Yeah, that's crazy, because confidence is a huge thing, because I bet even in business now, do you think, is there anything that you intentionally actually did to help you build confidence back up again?
I think challenging yourself definitely helps you, so obviously going to university itself is a challenge, getting through a degree is a challenge, then starting your career and working in different companies is a challenge. And I kind of tried to keep myself outside of my comfort zone. So the minute I sort of felt comfortable in a job, or I felt like I wasn't learning anything, I left and moved to another job. And like kind of all those experiences, starting new over and over again, really helped to kind of push me out of that comfort zone and become more confident. And I think the older you get, the more content you are with the person you are, especially when you're starting a business, because like I'm doing it because I'm passionate about it. So then I am myself. I'm doing everything that's, you know, me. I'm not pretending to be anyone else anymore. So I think you get confident.
Okay. So, you know, when you were really little, you know how we always have that one thing, I want to be a doctor one day and I want to be this. What was it for you?
So it's really strange, but I actually really cared about climate change as a kid.
Oh, wow.
And I found out about it and I thought, why is no one doing anything? Like,
Wow.
you know, the world's going to be flooded and we won't have a home. Why is no one working on this? Like, well, I was really concerned about it. And I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do about it. I just knew I wanted to do something. Obviously, there was all sorts of weird and wonderful things. At one point, I wanted to be an astronaut, and then I tasted their food that they eat, and I thought,
yeah. How did you taste their food?
Oh, I think we had a friend in school whose uncle was an astronaut.
Wow.
And she bought some samples, or maybe he came into school to do a talk or something. And yeah, very strange. But I actually think I cared the most about sustainability, and I really wanted to do something. So although I said I was shy, when I was 16, there was a film competition in school where you had to produce a film, and if you win, it would be shown in the cinema. And I made a film about climate change.
Wow.
And it was really weird because it was completely different to what everything that everyone else had made. But I got to see it in the cinema in Reading. And it was so cool to be able to like have that experience, to see something I made like shown in the cinema. And for that, my dad literally like drove me around, and we went to different went to the airport and filming the planes and then filming the factories. And yes, it was always climate change and sustainability.
Wow. Okay, that sounds amazing. So did that drive what you then did at university? Because obviously you did biochemistry at university. What made you choose that?
Yes, I did chemical engineering.
Sorry.
That's okay, no worries. So I studied chemical engineering because I kind of knew I wanted to go into that field. And I think as a kid, it's very hard to make such a big decision when you're like 17 or 18. You really don't. I think it might be easier these days. There's a lot more information out there about different careers, but then, you know, the standard was to go to, you know, your school careers like person and ask them about different careers. And so my mum actually helped me by reading prospectuses of universities, and she was looking at engineering, and she was like, I used to love building furniture as a child too, by the way.
Wow.
I like things together, and like I loved Lego, and I like building things. So my mum realized that engineering would be really good because I like putting things together and problem solving. And then chemical engineering really fit well into that area because you could work in like solar energy, wind energy, and other sorts of biofuels. So I thought, okay, this might kind of combine that passion with something I'm good at, because I was better at maths and science than maybe English or history.
Okay. So when did you start seriously thinking about business?
Oh, many years down the line. I think I started my career as a typical engineer, working in different industries, wanting to work in sustainability, but struggling to find a job. So I started in oil and gas instead. And, you know, of course you take whatever you get when you're an intern or a graduate. And then as I worked in different companies, I started to realize that I really like this startup scene, and I started to learn a lot more about it. And I thought, if only one day I could do something in the startup scene in the area of sustainability. But I think at that point I didn't really know enough about my career or myself to know if I can. So it was really over time that I started to like work in different companies, work with different bosses, and learn a lot more about how a business is run. So, you know, after having 6 different jobs, you know, in the end, I kind of thought, okay, now this is the point, because now I've learned so much from different organizations, startups, corporates, but also different leadership styles and different areas of expertise.
Okay. So what was the most exciting thing for you about the startup scene? What kind of made you think, actually, this is something that I could do?
Um, good question. I think I worked in corporates as well. And I think maybe as a young person, I'm just really determined. I have like a lot of energy and I want to do lots of stuff. I think a lot of people do. And for me, a corporate felt a bit boring because I felt like no matter what I do, it has to go through so many layers of people and all these other managers I've never seen. They're in another country. And I don't know how I can make a massive difference with what I'm doing.
Mm,
Whereas a startup scene, you're pretty much working with the founder or your manager and then the founder, and you really have such a direct impact,
mm,
and your voice can be heard a lot more. But
mm,
also, the change you make literally financially affects the company you're working for. It's kind of life or death for them. So you're doing something really important and really significant. And the best startup I worked for was BioBean in the UK, and we were collecting coffee from all the coffee shops in the UK and turning it into biofuels in a factory. And they gave me such great opportunities with, basically being the engineer, kind of helping with design of the factory and installation of new equipment. And I don't think I would have got that opportunity in a much larger corporate necessarily. I don't know. Maybe I could have, but I felt like working in a startup allowed me to have that opportunity, and I really wanted to take that and kind of run with it. And
mm.
yeah.
Okay, tell me a bit about some of the other things you learned, like as you went along, just working before you actually got into business. What were some of your biggest lessons that have helped you in business as well?
Oh, so many. um, I think the thing I learned the most, the main thing I learned was different leadership styles and how they can affect the rest of the team. Because, when you're an intern or a graduate, you're really kind of like, bottom of the ranks. So you see how different leaders treat you, how they treat people in your team, how everyone feels about them. Everyone, generally there's a vibe in an office, right? And there's a general consensus, and you can tell when it's a negative one or a positive one. And to be honest, usually it's affected by the leadership, and it's usually top down. So if your leader is a nice person and they care about everyone, there'll be a great positive vibe.
Mm,
And if not, then it's usually not the greatest place to work, and it filters down. I worked with like company owners who were amazing, but I didn't realize at the time, because I think as a graduate you don't know what you have until you go to another job. So my first job, they used to actually do weekly company meetings. Everyone would discuss what they do, and the owner would actually take his time out to kind of sit with us. And now looking back, I value that so much because he was so experienced, and he probably didn't have the time to spend an hour with all of us or speak to someone like me who was just an intern or a graduate at the time, but he did. And I valued that so much, that the fact that this person was treating me as a person. And I now take that as an experience going forward, that I want to make sure I'm a good leader for my team, and no matter who it is, that everyone is important and everyone should have a say.
mm,
And that was probably the biggest thing I learned, was the different leadership styles in every company, and um, how you can try and be a good leader and make sure you can get everyone to work together as opposed to working,
mm.
against each other.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely amazing, because I actually fully 100% agree with that. There's a huge difference, isn't it, between just a boss or just a manager and a leader. They're completely
Yeah.
different in the way they deal with things. Wow, that's amazing. So, okay, so you've decided, okay, I want to go into business. So what was that transition like? Did you just quit your job one day and be like, yeah, that's it, I'm gone? Or how did that work out?
No, so I had left my job, but really didn't know what I wanted to do at the time. But I think in the back of my mind, I always knew I wanted to do something for myself.
Mm,
But you're just like, when's the right time? I don't know when the right time is. And to be honest, there really never is a right time. You just have to do it. And at that point in my life, so last year, I kind of realized, okay, I'm at an age now where I've got a lot of experience. I don't have any commitments financially. So this is the best time for me to do it.
mm,
But the journey itself was actually very difficult at the beginning, especially more actually on a personal level.
mm,
Because when you've worked in industry for like 7 years and you used to going to an office, meeting your colleagues, speaking about your day, having people to share what's going on. Then you become a founder, and all of a sudden, the only people you can share things are with your family and friends, but not everyone can really relate to your journey.
Yeah.
And you start to feel a bit alone. And I also struggled with the confidence in believing in myself and my idea. And I thought, oh, maybe I'm just a fraud. Maybe I've got no idea what I'm doing. And it's only over time that I kind of started to, pitch my idea, develop my idea, and grow and make new friends, that I started to develop that confidence. And I think what really helped is having other founders to share the journey with, because then I realized I wasn't the only one struggling with all these things, and it's actually so like everyone else is in the same boat. But no, it really wasn't easy. It took a lot of mental strength to start.
Yeah, I can imagine, because I just completely feel the same. Because even like when my wife is telling me about how they're having a Christmas do and the manager did this, and everyone brought food into work, I'm just sat here by myself. Like every now and then I talk to my business partner, which is good. I've got a business partner, so I get to talk to him every now and again, but he's busy as well and stuff like that. So yeah, no, that is crazy. So how did you actually? Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, going to a co-working space is really helpful. Because I've met a lot of people there too, and there's so many other people in your shoes. So I recommend that when Corona is over, and maybe you can go to a co-working space or a cafe. Sometimes just having people around helps.
Yeah, no, 100% true. And so how did you come up with the idea?
Like I said, I worked in sustainability, I worked in biofuels, I worked in household waste to energy. So I worked a lot in waste, right? And I used to have to, in my career, go to waste sites, wear the high-vis jacket and have all these flies attacking your high-vis jacket because it was disgusting in there. And seeing where waste goes at the end, like it's just mind-blowing, it's shocking. And you think, gosh, this is awful. Like we just chuck stuff in the bins and we don't even think about where it's going. And so there was always something brewing in the back of my mind, there has to be something you can do about this. And I was actually in Tanzania in the end of 2018. And I was there for a family wedding, and that Tanzania is actually where a lot of the clothing donations end up, right? Donate to East African countries a lot. And I saw like the stalls where they were actually selling all these clothes that we've donated to the local public. And of course, a lot of these things are ill-fitting, they're not good quality. We're getting rid of our, low quality stuff that we bought, fast fashion stuff. And we're thinking, oh, doing such a good job donating it, but we're not really necessarily. And I felt so bad that, when my parents were maybe donating 20 years ago, they maybe donated them so many nicer quality things from, with better quality fabric. And now they're not getting that stuff. And at the end of the day, it's not helping the local economy, because they cannot then, any startups within East Africa who maybe want to produce their own clothing, they cannot sell it at those prices. And at the end of the day, if they can't sell it, well, what happens? So I started to do a lot of my research into, textile waste and really what's happening to it. And I found out that 90% of all clothes end up in landfills, or they're just burned. And that's kind of where I thought, okay, I have to do something about this, because I have the knowledge of the waste industry and the engineering background and the scalability knowledge, and fashion is a world I really care about, because I love fashion, I love clothes, so it kind of, I can't point the moment where it came to me. I still can't remember exactly, but I think it was a culmination of all these things in the back of my mind for a really long time.
Okay. And obviously you talked about the confidence to start telling people about your idea, and so how did that go? How were your first few conversations with people? Were you thinking, you know what, I've got this idea? How'd that go?
So the first person I actually pitched it to, so I thought, okay, I've been earning a salary for years. I feel financially comfortable with that, but I don't know how I'm going to feel if I don't earn a salary for a while. And I thought, I live in Berlin. I don't really know the local startup ecosystem enough. I don't know the right people I need to talk to. What's the best way to do this? And I found a local accelerator here, and they were kind of helping people exactly in my shoes who had an idea, who needed support, who needed financial support for a few months, but also just guidance with like mentoring or, connecting you to the right people locally. And so they were the first people I pitched to. And I thought, if I can get into that accelerator program, and if they buy into me and my idea, then there must be something good about it. And so I pitched to them, and they accepted me on literally a week later. And I thought, okay, I must be doing something right. And then I started to tell my friends slowly, and people were like, yeah, you should. Yeah, you should. Seems about right. So that kind of gave me the confidence to believe in myself a bit more. But yeah, it took a while.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously you're in this accelerator program. So how did it go from there? So then what were the initial things you did to actually turn it into an actual business?
So they gave you a lot of training with, like, learning how to even just set up a company in Germany, because it's so much harder in Germany. Like, in the UK, you can set up a limited online in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And in Germany, it's completely different. You need a lawyer, you need a notary, you need to understand the whole shareholder structure. You need to understand what type of company you're going to set up, because there's many different types. So they were kind of giving us all that training and really kind of helping us with, okay, this is what you need to do, introducing us to the right lawyers, introducing us to right investors, introducing us to getting us to do pitch events, helping us prepare pitches. And we had like weekly chats with our kind of accelerator managers, and they would kind of ask you how you're getting on and help you set goals and KPIs. And it's so funny because I'm actually really good friends with my old accelerator manager, and I feel like at that time he was probably my absolute best friend, because I was sharing everything and anything that was happening with him, and like really being able to kind of offload what I was going through at the time. And I think slowly you start to develop your idea and your thought process a lot more. And what really helps is everyone asking you questions, because everyone asked me a ton of questions, and that really helped me because I had to find an answer. So I started to realize what I need to do. And then I realized sharing your idea is probably one of the most important things, because you suddenly realize what you don't know and what you need to find out.
And how do you, because obviously you say that because a lot of people, obviously they're so afraid of sharing their idea because they're afraid of getting told what's bad about it. But you sound like you actually wanted people to tell you how did you get to that point where you were like, tell me what's wrong,
I mean, obviously you take it to heart. The first few times you hear that, like, this doesn't make any sense, you really do, like, and it really knocks your confidence. But then you get used to it and you start to realize, oh, hold on a minute, actually I do know what I'm talking about, because I started to figure these things out, and it helps you build your confidence. But it takes time. When I started doing it, of course, I felt really, even just emotional when I thought I wasn't doing the right thing. But over time, you suddenly realize I know more than anyone else does about this particular problem that I'm trying to solve, or the solution that I have. So people can question me for sure, but I do actually know what I'm talking about.
Okay. And are there some people that you found, because obviously you had the people at the accelerator program, but who are some of the people that were the most helpful throughout the whole process of just, whether it's family or friends, or what support did you get?
I feel so grateful and lucky because I've met some amazing people here in Berlin. I did a local, another accelerator actually run by Google for startups called the Female Founder Program. And it was literally at the point where I was saying to myself, I don't know anyone else who started a company, and I just want to be able to share my experience and to ask someone questions. And I got into this program, and it was all by chance. I happened to be at an event, meet a woman who was actually organizing Google for Startups Berlin, and didn't even know she was actually the lead of it. And then when I applied, she obviously remembered me because I'd spoken to her, and it was just very serendipitous. And when I did that program, I met 20 amazing women, and I can't tell you how much that group means to me, because I can we have a WhatsApp group. We always ask each other, okay, does anyone know a lawyer for this? Or does anyone know what's usually done in this scenario? And that was kind of like the biggest support group I had to begin with. Even just like booking a meeting room, or, I need a space for a few hours. Does anyone know where I could go or something? That's been fantastic. But actually I've met so many more people through like doing, obviously before Corona times, like pitch events on stage, or someone would introduce me to someone and then I'd go and meet them and they'd end up helping out so much, or introducing me to someone else who would. So I realized like getting out there, speaking to people, meeting people, pitching on stage, honestly, you meet incredible people. I've met so many people in the last year that I'm really grateful for having in my life. And I look forward to all the new people I might meet too along the journey.
Okay, and let me take you back slightly. Obviously, you're in Berlin now, but you're not from Berlin. You're from London. How did that happen? Just very briefly, how did you end up in Berlin?
So, well, Brexit was probably one of, not the main reason, but one of the reasons, because my husband's from Germany and we always knew we wanted to move to Germany, but Brexit kind of made that happen quicker. And also I think in the back of my mind, I always knew I wanted to start my own company one day. And I know that I needed to be somewhere very economically stable for that. And there's so much uncertainty at the moment. I wanted to be sure I was going to be somewhere that I felt it would be easier for me to do that. And Berlin is such a great startup scene. Like there's so much here, especially for expats as well. So it's not like you have to know the language to do anything. You can do so much. I have so many expat friends who are starting their own companies and maybe only know a little bit of German, and so do I. So there's so much here for that ecosystem to thrive. And yeah, I'm really happy to live here.
Yeah. Wasn't it quite difficult though at the start, because it's a complete culture shock? It's London, Berlin. How did you cope with that?
I think London, I had gotten to a point, I love London as my home, but I kind of fell out of love with London at that point in my life, not now, because I found it too stressful. And I felt like I was always running around the tube and chasing things and running around for meetings, and just, I was always sort of on edge and really high stress levels at all times. And moving here, although it's a really big city, it's got 4 million people, it's got a different vibe about it. It's a lot more relaxed. People are a lot more open. Everyone the pavements are twice the size, so you're not bumping into people when you're walking.
Yeah.
You can actually walk in peace. And like when I had visited here, that's kind of what I fell in love with. And the quality of life and the people and the openness is really important for me. Like everyone is not judgmental. They're very open and willing to kind of meet new people. And I think that's very important if you're going to move to a new city. So yeah, I fell in love with Berlin.
Okay. So obviously you talk about quality of life, and obviously you talk about stress levels in London and that kind of thing. How do you feel it's been from working a job to starting your own business? How's the stress levels and just the quality of life? What's that been like?
I think if I was doing this in London, well, I actually not even sure how easy it would be to do so anyway. But if I had done, I would have been on a completely new stress level. Because here things are closer, they're easier to get to. It's not as centralized. So of course, stress levels are high. Stress levels are high for any founder. You're always working. Your brain is always on. You're working all day, every day, even on the weekends. But if you're passionate about something, then it doesn't even feel like work. And that's the key thing, I think. When you're working, even though I really enjoyed my jobs, I personally, did possibly feel passionate about it, but not as much as I do now. So that kind of helps me get through that stress. And yeah, and also as a founder, you get to choose what you do, right? So you don't have to be stressed. You choose the stress.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And actually, I was going to ask you this, but I was thinking about like what on that point, what do you feel really drives you to do what you do?
So it comes back to what I did also talking about as my like childhood passion, sustainability. Like I want to be able to make a difference in sustainability, and I know that I can do that by keeping clothing out of landfills and incinerators. So, and it's like an area I care about, like fashion. So I think that kind of marries it all together, and that's the reason why I enjoy it.
So would you say, so like what about your family? What do they think about like you moving to Germany, starting a business over in Germany, and all that's going on?
It's funny because I think, when you have immigrant parents who have, sacrificed a lot and had to struggle to move to the UK and, build themselves up from scratch and get to where they are now. I think what they kind of crave is that safety for their kids because they've gone through so much. So although my parents are always really, really supportive, I know that it probably scared them a lot when I said I'm going to quit my job. Well, no, I'm actually not even going to start a new job. I'm going to start my own company. And whilst they didn't put that on me, I know that they've always been worried about it from the beginning. But over time, my mum's been in a few events that I've kind of recorded, and she was listening, and she realizes how passionate I am about it. And so I think now she just realizes that this is something I really care about, and so she obviously always has supported me, but even more so now they realize why I'm doing it.
Okay,
because it is a risk at the end of the day. A lot of most startups fail, but I think if you learn so much along the way, so I don't think it's necessary, even if you do fail, it's not necessarily a failure.
Okay, so can you tell us a bit about the inner workings of the company? Like, do you guys have a big team, and what does your day-to-day look like?
So we're quite a small team. There's about 7 of us. And my day-to-day is absolutely packed, non-stop meetings, calls. And before Corona, I was obviously traveling around Berlin, going to meet people, going to pitch events. Now things are sort of easier because you can do so much more from home, and people are a lot more open to that. So it means there's less of the traveling aspect and more just getting on with meetings. But my day-to-day is a lot of talking with people. I didn't realize actually as a founder how much you just have to talk to a lot of people. It's literally about it's not just about what you're doing, it's actually selling yourself, selling your ideas to investors, to potential customers, to potential partners, to potential employees. You're just in a way selling yourself and selling your company a lot. You end up saying the same thing a lot of the time.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, wow. So how did you even get to that place where you had 7 people working? Because you say it's a small company, but when you really think about, like, let's say the UK, businesses in the UK, not a lot of businesses in the UK have more than 5 employees. Most businesses are micro businesses in the UK. So like, how did you even get to that place where you have 7 employees and you're doing all of these different things?
I think I've been really lucky. I get a lot of inbound inquiries for people wanting to work with us, and I think it's because of the passion for the issue. Like, so many people just care about it, and a lot of young people care about sustainability. Fridays for Future is such a big reason for that, and people like the industry of fashion, and they kind of want to marry those two together, just like I am. So it wasn't as hard as I expected to kind of find people who also believe in the same challenge and want to do something about it. And I've noticed that people are like the younger generation, for sure. Everyone wants to make a difference. Everyone wants to do something. They want to do the right thing. And so I get so many inquiries from really young people, just wanting to help and support and make a difference. And I'm happy to be able to kind of give that.
Okay, speak to that a little bit, because I find that, because for every reason, because online, obviously at the moment, there's this huge thing on YouTube where it's all about, this person went from 0 to £1 million in 2 days, or this person made this many millions of pounds. What do you think? Because obviously for people to be doing it on YouTube and all of that, clearly people are falling for this and people are really driven by money. And obviously you've just talked about people wanting to make an impact. what do you actually think? Do you think it's like a 50-50 thing where some people just want the money and, some people want to really make an impact?
I have a more positive um, opinion about it. I personally, like from my experience alone, have seen so many more young people who just want to make an impact, and obviously understand money as a part of it, but it's not the sole factor for them wanting to do what they do. Like if they were going to do that, they probably would have gone into investment banking, for example. Not going to work for a startup necessarily. That's what I found, but it could be that I'm in a startup bubble, or I'm in a bubble of Berlin, London, like maybe it's not the same in other parts of the world. But from all the young people I talk to, it seems like they really care, and probably more so than they did maybe when I was younger. I know when I was talking about climate change, people were laughing at the idea of it. So I think there's definitely a movement towards the greater good, which is really needed.
Because what's your take then on, like, even for you as a person, when it comes to money and business, like what's your how much does the actually making money motivate you to do what you do?
This is going to sound silly because, of course, the whole point of starting a business is to make money. But I care more about impact entirely. That's my whole philosophy. If I'd cared about money, like I said, I wouldn't have done it. I would have gone into finance or something completely different. So I care about that, but I obviously understand that the only reason why a business will run is to make money. But I think people buy a story, they don't buy a product. So if I feel passionate about what I'm selling or the solution I'm selling, then other people will buy into that. And that's what people buy. So eventually you might end up making money anyway. But I think it should come from a more, a different perspective. I don't want to think about just my life. I want to think about, what impact I'm going to leave one day. So I don't really do anything for money, because otherwise I wouldn't have worked in sustainability or startups for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that actually makes perfect sense. And even when you mentioned people buy into a story. Tell me a bit about that. Let's say I'm here and I want to make impact. I want to start a business that makes an impact. What advice would you give to someone who does actually want that? Because I like what you said about people buy into a story. What advice would you give?
I would say find the thing that you really care about in particular, because obviously sustainability as a whole is such a vast area. Find the one thing you care about and the thing that you know a lot about. So for example, like I said, I care about sustainability. I know a lot about this, but I really care about textiles and fashion too, and I love fashion. So that's marrying those two things together. So when I have to pitch to investors or pitch my business on stage, people don't necessarily need to ask why you, because they understand that this fits your background and it fits your passion at the same time. So I always hope that people will find the thing they really care about, the thing they really know about. So if they want to start a business on it, then ideally they've either done a degree on that area, or maybe they've gone and done courses on that area to really build their knowledge, to build their credibility, to be the reason why they should do it, but also marry it with your passion. If you can marry it with your passion, it's the best thing in the world, because it doesn't feel like a day's work.
Amazing. And you mentioned investors a few times. So did you guys get investment then?
We're actually raising around right now.
Okay. Oh, amazing. And how's that been, that process?
It sounds really funny, because I know like every, like startup podcast I listened to where you're talking about investment stuff, there was like, oh, it's a tough time. And I agree, it's a tough time, but weirdly enough, I'm really enjoying it at the moment. And I think it's because I'm getting the chance to be introduced to so many really interesting people. So even if they don't invest, it's just the fact that I got to meet this person who on a normal day-to-day I never would have met, because there was no way they would have come into my life. But I've happened to meet an investor who might be interested, who's then introduced me to this person. So I enjoy that aspect of it. And I think another thing I also enjoy is possibly just maybe breaking barriers. because whenever I kind of share my story or I tell people, yeah, you know, this is what I'm doing, but actually it's because I did engineering and I did this, that, and the other. People are usually surprised because it's not necessarily the person they would have expected to meet or would have said the same things. So I like that because it might open up people's minds to the fact that not every engineer has to be an old man. It can also be a woman.
Yeah. Okay. You bring up an interesting point as well about. So how have you? Because obviously you're young, you know, and you and I'm assuming the people that you're talking to and doing stuff around, whether it's investors or the, you know. So how have you felt about, you know, being young, I would even mention being a woman as well, because I have spoken to quite a few female founders that feel quite strongly about, you know, being a female founder, being young, and that kind of thing. How have you found it?
So I always hear the statistics, right, of like women get a lot less investment than men do, and I know that is the case. But I think now's a really good time for women to start businesses because there's so much support for people like us, you know, to get investment, to make a difference. There's like business angel clubs run by women for women. You know, this wouldn't have been the case if even just a few years ago. So it's a great time. Obviously, there's a huge room for improvement and there's so much more that can be done. But it's happening. And alongside that, actually, this is a bit off topic actually, but one of my friends and I, we're actually trying to do something similar now for women of color. Because we sort of feel like there's a lot of support, but there's a lot less women of color founders out there. And it might just be because, you know, we don't necessarily maybe have similar backgrounds, or like I said, you know, people have come from immigrant backgrounds where it might not be encouraged for people to start their own companies. So we're actually trying to do some stuff locally in Berlin to kind of support that, for everyone to kind of create a bit of a network and to actually help each other meet investors. Because meeting investors, something I've really learned that was key is they will only talk to you if they get a warm introduction. And a warm introduction means I have to somehow know, you know, a few rich people or, you know, an investor, but I don't necessarily know that through my personal network or my family or my friends. So I met investors through going to events, through networking, through pitching, through going on stage, through going through all these accelerator programs. And I feel like I would like to be able to help other women of color also be able to do the same. And hopefully to also encourage other younger women of color to actually think about starting a business, because it's such an amazing journey and there's no reason why anyone can't do it, sorry.
No, that's absolutely amazing, because I actually feel quite strongly about that, because even like people like my mom's always had a phenomenal mind around business and that kind of thing, and she never really ever had an opportunity for it, but she was trained as a nurse and that kind of thing, and she did that most of her life. And it's only just now that she's really getting to express herself in that way, but she's always had, you know, phenomenal abilities when it comes to things like business and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's absolutely amazing what you're doing there. And so you also mentioned about, obviously you talked about investors. Okay, I'm going to come back again to investors, because a lot of people do ask about how to get investment, that kind of thing. So what would you advise someone about? You know, so obviously you mentioned going to events where, you know, these people might be, but how would they approach an investor? Like, you know, I'm just a nobody and no one really knows who I am. And what advice would you give about
that? I think it's very hard to say to someone, give me money. And I don't think you should either, because I think the minute you want to get something from someone like that, they're going to obviously put their guard up, right? I think it's best to go to people asking them some advice or asking them for some suggestions. And they might end up giving you money in the end. You never know. They might love your idea so much. Or they'll at least ask you the right questions so you can get to that point where when you do ask the third or fourth or 10th person, you've answered those questions and now that person might want to give you money. So I also think, like, if you can get a chance to pitch at an event, it's probably one of the best things you can do. Because if you are pitching an event and you're on stage, people will hear you, your voice will be heard. It's so much easier than just going up to someone and talking to them. I found that really hard initially, like finding someone and then going and talking to them. So it was easier to go on stage and speak to everyone in the audience. And then the people who are interested will come and speak to you. And even if that person you wanted to speak to didn't, you can go up to them and they know who you are and they know what you're about already. And they kind of maybe realize, oh, you're confident enough to go on stage. So yeah, maybe I want to talk to you. It's the best, but the best thing is to get a warm introduction if you can. So find someone who knows someone, go through your LinkedIn connections. And if you found the investor that you want to, speak to, see if you've got any common friends and if they can introduce you, because it's so much better than you messaging. To be honest, everyone I have spoken to, every single person I've spoken to has been through a warm introduction, someone introducing me. And you get a lot of like business angel clubs where, there are a group of people who all invest, and you get into touch with one of them and then they end up introducing you to like 10 others. So yeah, warm introductions.
Okay.
If you can.
Okay. So getting on stage. So did you have any form of training or anything like that to be able to get on stage and speak confidently? And
No, not at all.
oh,
But I think what probably helped is as a kid playing music on stage, dancing on stage, and just generally performing a lot of drama. And even though that was really when I like literally under the age of 10, but that definitely must have stuck with me at some point, so that it feels so much more natural doing it now when I'm older. And also, this is very random, but my dad used to do a lot of like home videos and film us as kids. So I used to like stand in front of the camera as a kid and, like present on the camera, and I don't know, that maybe that helped.
Okay. And talking about your dad and your parents, are they quite entrepreneurial as well, or is it?
Not at all. Completely different backgrounds. My dad's an artist, so that's where the art scene comes from. But yeah, no, they're not entrepreneurial. But my granddads were actually. So maybe at some point I got it from them. They moved from India to Africa and started their own businesses. And they didn't obviously know Swahili, the language, and they, without Google, set up businesses there. So I always look back to them and I think if they could do it in those times, then what I'm doing is not a challenge at all by any means. That always really grounds me, thinking back to what they did.
Well, have you been to Tanzania quite a lot then? Because you obviously mentioned that's where your family are from. Well,
Yeah.
from India to there.
Yeah, so I've been to Tanzania more times than I've been to, we're actually from northern India, an area called Punjab. But I've only been there twice, but I've been to Tanzania like so much more as a kid, going on safari in Serengeti in the national parks and seeing all the animals. And I did that a lot as a kid.
Okay, sounds amazing. So if you tell us a bit about Forbes 30 under 30. So how did that come about?
That was the craziest time ever. I was honestly in such shock when it happened. And it was weirdly enough, like it was just before we had a lockdown here, like probably like maybe the week of lockdown even. So it was really nice because actually it was like, everyone's stuck at home and I was kind of really worried about how the business was going to pan out during Corona. And it was like a boost because it kind of just gave me that extra bit of confidence. If Forbes recognized me, then I must be able to do it. I really, I'm so grateful for that. And the only thing that I always think is a bit annoying is that because of Corona, of course, there were going to be lots of opportunities to get to meet all of the other people on the list and maybe go to events with them. And there's so many amazing people across the world. And of course, all of those aren't happening and they were more virtual, but it's okay. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay. Because I got to speak to Nick from Ocean Bottle actually recently, and he got on the Forbes 30 under 30 as well. And I was asking him, and again, it's the same question, but like, how do you get onto the Forbes 30? What advice would you say to someone? Because one of my friends once said to me, I'd love to get on there. Like, what advice would you give about getting onto a list like that?
Do something that makes you stand out. My career has always been, like I said, doing engineering or chemical engineering is really weird anyway. Most girls won't necessarily do that as a degree, and even working in oil and gas or working in biofuels or working on a factory, like people don't necessarily do that. So maybe because I was in the manufacturing and industry category, possibly it was easier because there's not that many women on that list, so do something that makes you really stand out. But also believe in yourself and try and sell yourself. You have to kind of explain to them why you think you're worthy of being on this list. And so you have to be authentic. Like if I was saying to you, I really care about this, but I didn't, then you probably wouldn't be able to tell. So be as authentic as you can.
Okay. Sorry, I'm aware of time. We're gonna be finishing up soon.
Don't worry.
I just got a couple of more questions. So, what are some of the biggest challenges that you would say you've had on your entrepreneurial journey?
Okay, so I mentioned the confidence thing at the beginning was really challenging, and then time management. Because especially during Corona, I found it really difficult to switch off, because if you're on lockdown and you're at home anyway, the computer's right there, it's very easy to just continue working. And kind of checking in on yourself and switching off, I found very hard, and I still do, but I'm starting to get more like forceful. I'm not gonna lie, it's probably also because I noticed a grey hair. I need to chill out because otherwise I'm going to go grey before I want to. So that might be one of the reasons why I suddenly realized, okay, yeah, I need to relax a bit more. Time management is a difficult one because you're doing anything and everything. And all the amazing founders, friends I have, someone is always working till 3 a.m. Someone's always waking up at 5, and you're just like, I can't compete with this. And you have to realize that you don't have to compete with this. You have to do what's right for you. So time management has been tough. The confidence thing was an issue at the beginning. And then I also think prioritization. I think there's a lot of distractions as a founder. There's a million things you can be doing, but not necessarily everything moves the needle, right? So you really need to prioritize and figure out, okay, where do I want to be in the next 3 months, 6 months, a year? And then what do I need to do to get there now? And then if that means I don't need to do X, Y, and Z because I really need to do A, B, and C, then do those things. And prioritization, like I learned about, for example, OKRs, which are like the Google for Startups team taught us that, like basically goal setting and making everything like smart targets where everything is measurable. I found those really useful. And to be honest, the minute I started setting myself weekly goals and monthly goals, I felt like I achieved so much more than I had when I didn't set those goals.
Okay. And so what are some of the highlights that you've had with entrepreneurship?
Forbes was obviously one.
Yeah.
Things I really enjoy is things like talking to you, for example, getting a chance to kind of stop your life for a second and reflect. It's really nice. It's not often that you start to think about your childhood.
Yeah.
For example. And I think the thing I like the most is, I think when you're working for someone, I found it hard to be myself and a fully authentic and fully really say everything I feel, but doing my own thing, I can be that and not anyone else. I'm myself, and being that authentic person, doing what you care about, what you're passionate about, it gives you different confidence. I really enjoy it. I think there's so many highlights. Also, obviously meeting so many fantastic people in the last year and a half, and getting the chance to build a dream. And like I said, even if it is a failure, I don't think anything's a failure. I think everything is a learning curve. And, if I hadn't done this, then I would have really regretted it.
Okay, amazing. So final question that I always ask everyone, what does success mean to you?
So again, I'm going to be cheesy. I'm going to say success really means impact. So if I can make an impact in this world, obviously within terms of sustainability, so helping reduce textiles in landfills and incinerators, making the fashion industry more sustainable, or reducing plastics in the world, then that means that's success. I've done something, I've created change. If I can encourage people to understand what circular economy is and how you can reuse waste, then that's an achievement. But also if I've encouraged other people to maybe realize that, you know, I can do this too, or I can also build my dream, then that's a huge achievement for me, because I want to be able to, I want other people, younger girls or even younger boys, to realize that you don't have to be anyone special. You know, everyone is special and you can do it too. So that for me is success, all those things.
Amazing. And so what can we do to be able to support the impact that you're making? Is there anything that people out there can do to support your organization, and where can we find you as well?
Yeah, so for now, supporting, the best way is obviously to follow us. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook on Kleiderly Berlin. And I'm hoping that at some point, obviously, we're going to be able to one day take donations from not just the charities we work with, but perhaps even from, to be able to like get people to work with the specific charities we work with. So then you'd be able to help more. But for now, just follow us and that's perfectly fine.
Amazing. Listen, it's been really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Look, I've got loads more questions I would want to ask you. You're a busy women, need to get back to running a business. So thank you so much for coming on and, you know, giving us your time.
No, thank you so much for approaching me.